The man who disappeared. The true story of Frank Matthews, America's most elusive drug kingpin. Every generation produces criminals whose names become legendary. Al Capone ruled Chicago during Prohibition. Lucky Luciano helped reshape organized crime in America. Pablo Escobar built a cocaine empire that challenged the Colombian government. Joaquin El Chapo Guzman escaped from maximum security prisons. Frank Lucas became famous for claiming to bypass the mafia's heroin supply chain. But among the most mysterious figures in American criminal history stands a man whose story remains unfinished. A man who built an empire worth millions of dollars. A man who became one of the Drug Enforcement Administration's highest priority targets. A man who allegedly disappeared with an estimated $20 million in cash. A man who has never been found. His name was Frank Larry Matthews. Unlike nearly every major organized crime figure of the 20th century, Frank Matthews was never convicted on the charges that made him famous. He was never sentenced to decades in federal prison. He was never assassinated in a public shooting. He was never extradited from another country. He was never captured after years on the run. Instead, he simply vanished. More than 50 years have passed since his disappearance. The mystery continues to fascinate historians, retired investigators, journalists, and students of organized crime. What made Frank Matthews different was not simply the amount of money investigators believed he earned. It was the way he allegedly built his organization. During an era when many heroin traffickers depended upon traditional mafia-controlled distribution networks, federal investigators believed Matthews had begun developing his own independent supply relationships. If true, this represented a major shift in the American narcotics trade and threatened existing criminal organizations. Whether every allegation against him can be proven is still debated. But one fact is beyond dispute. Frank Matthews became one of the most wanted fugitives in America. To understand how he reached that point, we must begin at the beginning. Frank Larry Matthews was born on February 13, 1944, in Durham, North Carolina. America was in the middle of World War II. Franklin D. Roosevelt was President of the United States. Factories operated around the clock producing tanks, aircraft, ammunition, and military equipment. The nation was united by war abroad while still divided by racial segregation at home. Durham occupied a unique place in American history. For decades, it had been known for one of the nation's most successful black business districts along Parrish Street, often called Black Wall Street. African-American entrepreneurs established banks, insurance companies, newspapers, and businesses despite the restrictions imposed by Jim Crow laws. Yet opportunity remained unequal. Schools were segregated. Employment opportunities were limited. Political power was restricted. Many families lived in poverty despite working long hours. It was into this world that Frank Matthews was born. Compared with famous political leaders or entertainers, relatively little verified information exists about Matthews' childhood. Unlike many historical figures, he did not leave behind memoirs, diaries, or extensive interviews describing his early life. Most of what historians know about him comes from later law enforcement investigations, newspaper reports, and court records after he had already become a major narcotic suspect. At some point during his youth, Matthews left North Carolina. Like millions of African Americans during the Great Migration, he headed north in search of greater opportunity. His destination was New York City. By the 1960s, New York had become one of the largest and most influential cities in the world. It was a financial capital, a cultural center, a transportation hub. It was also becoming one of the largest narcotics markets in the United States. Heroin addiction increased dramatically during the 1960s. Demand expanded throughout New York and many other major American cities. Whenever enormous demand exists, someone attempts to control the supply. According to federal investigators, Frank Matthews recognized this opportunity earlier than many of his competitors. Unlike low-level street dealers focused on daily sales, Matthews allegedly concentrated on wholesale distribution. Investigators believed he understood that the greatest profits belonged to those who controlled supply rather than retail sales. Federal authorities later alleged that Matthews built relationships extending far beyond New York. His organization reportedly distributed heroin into numerous cities, including Philadelphia, Baltimore, Washington, Detroit, Chicago, Atlanta, New Orleans, and other major metropolitan areas. The exact size of his operation remains debated. Some estimates were based upon intelligence reports. Others came from confidential informants. Still others emerged during criminal investigations. Because much of the business operated illegally and secretly, historians cannot determine with certainty how much heroin Matthews actually controlled. Nevertheless, investigators consistently described him as one of the nation's largest independent traffickers during the early 1970s. One characteristic separated Matthews from many organized crime figures. He reportedly preferred organization over unnecessary violence. While violence certainly surrounded the heroin trade, Matthews became known among investigators for his business-minded approach. He allegedly emphasized logistics, transportation, pricing, and supply relationships. Federal authorities claimed this approach allowed his organization to expand rapidly. As his influence increased, so did government attention. The early 1970s marked a turning point in America's fight against narcotics trafficking. In July 1973, the United States formally created the Drug Enforcement Administration by combining several federal agencies responsible for drug enforcement. Even before the DEA officially opened its doors, investigators had already identified Matthews as one of their highest priority targets. Federal agents spent months collecting evidence. They interviewed informants, conducted surveillance, followed financial leads, reviewed telephone records, built conspiracy cases. Eventually, prosecutors believed they possessed enough evidence to move forward. Matthews was arrested on federal narcotics charges. He was released on bond while awaiting trial. Authorities expected him to appear in court. He never did. On June 26, 1973, Frank Matthews disappeared. According to investigators, approximately $20 million also vanished. The money has never been recovered. Matthews has never been located. The DEA launched one of the largest fugitive investigations in its history. The FBI joined the search. The United States Marshals Service participated. Tips arrived from around the world. Some claim Matthews escaped to Africa. Others suggested Europe, South America, the Caribbean. Some believed he remained inside the United States under a false identity. Others argued he had been murdered by rivals over the missing money. Despite decades of investigation, none of these theories has been conclusively proven. No verified photograph has surfaced. No confirmed financial records. No authenticated death certificate. No identified burial site. No arrest. No verified witness capable of solving the mystery. Today, historians distinguish carefully between documented facts and speculation. The documented facts are clear. Frank Matthews existed. He became the subject of major federal narcotics investigations. He disappeared before standing trial. He has never been found. His story remains one of the greatest unsolved mysteries in American criminal history. More than 50 years later, the question remains exactly as investigators first asked it in 1973. Did Frank Matthews successfully escape? Was he murdered? Did he create an entirely new identity somewhere else in the world? Or did the answers disappear with him forever? Perhaps the greatest mystery surrounding Frank Matthews is not how he built his alleged empire. It is how one of the most wanted men in America seemingly disappeared without leaving behind a single verifiable clue. History remembers many criminals for how they were captured. Frank Matthews is remembered because he never was. If you enjoyed this content, please press the subscribe button. Until next time, thanks for watching.